Magic items are one of the greatest things about tabletop role-playing games, so let's get into one of the more common and useful magic items, the Bag of Holding. Welcome back, fellow Game Masters. I'm Richard Quiner, and on the first Sunday Stash, we're talking about the Bag of Holding. I said it's one of the most common because I don't think I've ever seen an adventure party that didn't have one of these in their possession. It's very useful, and it's pretty neat, and it has a lot of utility and power with it. So let's break this thing down. The Bag of Holding is basically a Mary Poppins bag, or a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. You're able to put a lot of stuff in it without it taking up much space other than the physical bag dimension on the outside. And it always weighs only about 15 pounds, no matter how much you stuff in this thing. How does the Bag of Holding actually work? Well, magic. I could say just magic, but really it's more of a dimensional pocket of the astral plane kind of captured within the bag that is much larger than the actual size of the bag is. So as you're putting things in, it's actually going to another plane, and then when you pull them out, they are resummoned back to the material plane. And when it comes to rules and regulations and using the Bag of Holding, the rules as written say it takes one action to pull something out. So if you're in the heat of combat and you need something from that Bag of Holding, it's going to be one action worth. This bag is very cool, but there are some limitations and risks when using it. The first limitation is you can only fit about 500 pounds of stuff in this. 500 pounds can be a lot, or it can be not a lot, depending on how heavy the item that you're putting in is. The other side of that is it's written as about 64 cubic feet of space. Now, 64 cubic feet of space is 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide by 4 foot deep. So, I don't know, think of a big box, a really big box. Like a refrigerator might be 64 cubic feet. That's all the space you get in this. So you're not going to be fitting in like elephants and large animals into this Bag of Holding. That's the other side note. Living creatures in the Bag of Holding can suffocate. There is about 10 minutes of air inside the bag, and if you put more than one living creature in the bag, you have to divide it between the two. So 2 creatures, they're only going to be alive for about 5 minutes. So think of that before you go stuffing living things into a Bag of Holding. It's a big risk. And the other risk with these, if the bag is damaged or ruptured in any way, like if you overstuff it or if you pierce it somehow or damage the bag, it will be destroyed. And when that happens, everything that was inside it is scattered throughout the astral plane, which means you can't have it anymore. So be careful with these Bags of Holding. You don't want to damage them, you don't want to break them, because you'll lose all your stuff. Now, these bags are super useful even with these other restrictions. You can put a lot of stuff in there. In my adventure party, I think we're using it mainly for gold. Like, we have a lot of gold, and gold is heavy. So you put in a Bag of Holding and it doesn't slow you down, which is really cool. You can also put other objects and different things in there and just, conserve space and weight by using your Bag of Holding, as long as you don't go over the 500 pounds. I know I mentioned you should think twice before putting a living creature into a Bag of Holding, but if you think about it, you could use the Bag of Holding to smuggle someone or something inside an area where they're not supposed to be. Take a person, shove them in a Bag of Holding, sneak into a place or walk into a place. As long as you got 10 minutes to do it, then you can get them out before they suffocate, and it's all good. I mean, it's a pretty good sneaky smuggling tactic that I think would be useful. And the last really cool use that I found is being able to send enemies to the astral plane. Now this, I don't recommend it in a lot of cases. It shouldn't be like a common tactic that you use, because it's a very specific scenario that has to happen in order for this to work. But in the rules, as they're written, it says if the Bag of Holding comes in contact or passes through another extra dimensional item, such as they have a kind of a rucksack or a portable hole, or is the other one that's called, if those come into contact, then they will be destroyed. And when they're destroyed, it will open up a portal to the astral plane. And when that portal opens to the astral plane, all the creatures within 10 feet of that astral plane portal will get sucked in. Once those creatures are in, the portal will close, and it won't be able to be opened again. It's a one-way trip to the astral plane. So you think that could be useful in some situations. If you're fighting a big bad guy, and you can get close enough to do this kind of like portable hole Bag of Holding maneuver, you might be able to send them to the astral plane, which is really neat and really powerful. But the downside is, in order to make that happen, a player will probably have to go with it. Unless you like Kobe it in, like you have a portable hole and you like throw the Bag of Holding in from a distance, that might work. But there's a lot of risk involved there too. But if someone were there to physically shove the bag through a portable hole, they'd probably disappear with it. They'd just get sucked in, and then they'd be in the astral plane. Would it kill them? Not necessarily, but it does stick them on another plane, which could actually turn into another adventure for the adventure party to go on to retrieve their companion. There are several frequently asked questions about the Bag of Holding, and the Wizards of the Coast people have not defined a lot of thoughts and ideas about this Bag of Holding in order to give the game masters discretion on what rules they use and what kind of things they can do. So here's a couple frequently asked questions and my hot take on them that you can choose to use or reject in your own game. First off, what school of magic is a Bag of Holding? This comes up because people will hit detect magic on it, and magic tells you what school it is. I say it's conjuration. You've conjured a astral plane pocket inside a bag. That's basically it. So that's my hot take on it, but feel free to use whatever you want because you're the game master. Can someone steal from a Bag of Holding if they didn't put in the item? That's kind of a weird question because it's never written that, only the person who puts the item into the bag can take it out. So I say, yeah, people can steal out of it. As long as they know what's in there, they can reach in and get that item from the Bag of Holding. It's not like, biometric scanner. It's just a bag. And the last of these frequently asked questions, well, I don't know if it's frequently. I like the question, so I went with this one, is if someone is in the Bag of Holding, can they escape? This comes from the idea that you're using the Bag of Holding kind of like a prison, which could work. I guess it really is DM's discretion. I have two perspectives on it, where one, I would say no, because maybe the opening of the Bag of Holding needs to be opened from the outside in order for the portal to this small astral dimension to be accessible. That's one way to look at it. The other side is to look at it and say, well, it is a small space. It's only about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. It's not a huge astral dimension necessarily. So maybe someone in there could be able to find the opening and get out somehow. It really is your discretion as a game master. I think in my game, we haven't really come up with this. We haven't tried using it as a prison yet. But as for me as a game master, I would say if the person isn't restrained inside the bag, then maybe they could try to find a way out, but it would be very difficult for them. It wouldn't be an easy, there's the hole, let me go through it. It would be more like, I gotta search, I gotta find how to get out of this thing. And maybe, use some creative problem solving to do so. That being said, all of these ideas are at your discretion. You're the game master, you make the rules, work with your players. If it's not written in a book, then, you can do what you want with it. So feel free to be creative. Come up with your own way to use this Bag of Holding. Encourage your players to get really creative with it. My players, I didn't know the size limit, so they stuffed about 200 gnomes in one. I let them do that. I was like, all right, and I gave them plenty of air so they could travel a long distance with these 200 gnomes. Looking back, if I hadn't understood the rules beforehand, I probably wouldn't have let them do it, but it made for a fun moment and a fun time for the player. So that's that. So that is the Bag of Holding in a big nutshell, but it's bigger on the inside. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you like the content on the channel, hit the subscribe button. I've been Richard Quiner, and thank you for watching.